Hello there, we're Luke and Matt, and we're pastors at Village Church Chicago, and welcome to 10 Minutes That Make a Difference. This is our first Tuesday together, and we're going to try and each week take a few minutes to discuss topics where life and faith intersect. And so today, we're going to be discussing hustle versus Sabbath, and how do we balance working hard while also resting well in a fast-paced world that we live. And so, Matt, do you want to start us off by kind of giving us a definition of what is hustle in our current context?
Absolutely. Well, to figure out what hustle was, like any self-respecting millennial, I turned to Google. And so Google, their first definition, I thought wasn't the most helpful, but I thought there was a better one they'll read after. So hustle is defined as moving hurriedly or unceremoniously in a specified direction, or just busy movement and activity. But I think a definition much more encapsulates where we are as a culture when we're thinking of hustle is from Urban Dictionary. Urban Dictionary says that hustle is to have the courage, confidence, self-belief, and self-determination to go out there and work it until you find the opportunities you want in life. So I think that's a really healthy definition that's really about this idea of working it as hard as you can so that you can find those opportunities to do the things you want in life. And we work at WeWork, and their whole slogan is live your life. So I think that's definitely a really accurate definition of what we mean by hustle today. First off, like Luke, what's good about hustle?
Well, when I think about like hustle and then just work in general, it's like work is something that was definitely given to us by God. Like we see that early on in the scriptures that that God gave us work as a gift. Like
yep.
we find meaning and purpose and drive in working hard and doing things well. Over and over, the scriptures, particularly in the book of Proverbs, tell us and warn us about the person who's lazy or the sluggard who doesn't work hard. Proverbs 13:4 says that the soul of the sluggard craves and gets nothing. He wants something, to desire something, but they don't ever get it. While the soul of the diligent is richly supplied. So those that work hard, that are willing to put in the hustle towards their goals, get those, achieve those. That's the way our world is set up. And so I think hustle is a good thing, particularly when we're striving towards goals that are meaningful to us and to others around us. And so, but there also could be dangers to that. So Matt, what do you see as some of the key dangers to just hustling?
For sure. Well, I kind of see two key dangers. And the first one would be kind of, in a sense, the idea of like a hamster in a wheel. That we are hustling so hard and we are just chasing after our next goal, but we're not really exactly sure what's on the other end of that goal. Mm-hmm. And so almost like we're, as humans, like we're millennials, we love setting goals, but then when we actually reach the goals, there's always this bittersweet of we wish there was more there in achieving it. So first off, like I don't think we've always fully figured out what is after achieving the goal, and we don't fully find the satisfaction that we wanted in there. And so that can leave us like feeling dissatisfied and frustrated. But the second, and even a bigger danger, is this idea of comparison. That when we're hustling really hard, like it's really hard not to be looking at other people who are doing things bigger, better than us, and we're essentially like looking to build our identity, our who we are, like what we can share and serve with others based on what we're accomplishing, what we're doing, and you're only as good as what you did last.
Yeah.
Which kind of always leaves us in this really vulnerable place where we just universally experience that imposter syndrome where we're feeling like we're frauds and we're not measuring up. Yeah. So I think there definitely are some real dangers in it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so I think what that leads us with is Sabbath, right? Like we have this thing that the scriptures describe as Sabbath. And Sabbath is that word that is used to describe a day set aside for rest and worship. And so it's this rhythm, this sort of weekly rhythm, or this, like, you can even do larger Sabbaths throughout the year, of just taking time away from our hustle, from the work and the goals and the daily grind, to rest and to rest well. Sabbath is in one way embracing our limits. And so this is something that me and you are both trying to practice well. And I think, want to share a little bit about like what that actually looks like. What does it look like to rest and to take a Sabbath. And I think for me right now, I'm trying to make sure that I take at least one day a week of rest. But what I'm finding is that sometimes on those days of rest, I'm worried about the work I have to do the rest of the week. Or I'm tempted to kind of work part of a day and not really take the whole day off, not really rest all the way. And I kind of have like this guilt, like, oh, I'm not doing any work right now, and I really should be. And so I don't feel rested, and then I don't feel like I worked either. And so I just come out feeling, ugh. And even on days where I take a day off, I'm not necessarily resting well. I'm doing things that are just kind of shutting off and tuning out, but I'm not doing anything that's refreshing my soul, that's like good for my body, or good for my relationships with other people even. I'm just kind of zoning out. So trying to find a way to take a solid day off and really be disciplined that, but also to spend that day wisely in a way. But what about you, Matt? How's your experience been in trying to take a Sabbath?
For me, I've been pastor about 3 years now, and it's something I've definitely have figured out how to do, how to take it, how to have the discipline to take it. And so usually for me, since I work on Sundays, I take it on Saturdays, and that's just the day that I relax and spend with my wife and kid Asher. But the challenge for me isn't so much taking it, but it's, when we talk about Sabbaths, it's this idea of finding both rest and also worship in God. And I find the rest, but I don't really find the worship. So, all too often my Sabbath actually is the day where I take off from God. Like it's the one day where I'm not going to Him in prayer or reading scriptures. It's my day to binge on entertainment or spend time with family, which is all good, but I don't always feel rejuvenated because I'm not using it as a day to be refreshed or spend time with Him.
Yeah. No,
But as far as like the Sabbath, like why, it's obviously we all need time to rest, but why is it so important?
I think Sabbath is so important, particularly in our culture right now, because we have technology in our pockets that allow us to work all the time, 24/7. Sort of the limits and boundaries to the work and the possibilities of what we could do has kind of become limitless. But our resources as people, of like what we're capable of as far as our energy and our time and sort of our souls, have kind of stayed limited. Like we are limited people by design. And so when we have these sort of limitless possibilities in front of us, we can just go and go and go until we've really worn ourselves out to an unhealthy way. And so Sabbath is about embracing those limitations that we have as people, as humans, and saying, look, I can work really hard, but then I'm going to give a limit to that, and I'm going to also rest.
That's good.
And I think that allows us not just to work really hard for short spurts of periods until we kind of burn ourselves out, but to really have this sort of legacy, to like live in a life where we worked really hard because we were disciplined in taking Sabbaths and taking moments and times of rest to reorient ourselves with God and to spend time with others. And I think we really have to ask this question, kind of diagnose ourselves when we find ourselves in really busy seasons, is we're going to all have seasons where we're just busy, where we just have to work hard to get that deadline done. But the question is it just a busy season of hustle, or is it an unhealthy lifestyle that we're in? Because I think if we're in an unhealthy lifestyle where we're refusing to rest, we can burn out, we can neglect others, and we mismatch our priorities. We're not spending time with the people who matter most and investing in ourselves and investing in others, these larger things that are bigger than our next project. And so I think Sabbath is important because when we take Sabbath and we embrace those limitations, that's when we can spend time not just to rest, but also to worship and to meet the limitless God who's able to kind of meet those things that we're maybe even chasing after in our hustle, like you were talking about earlier, with that hamster wheel.
For sure.
And so I think Sabbath is God's invitation to us to know Him in and through rest.
Love that. And it's a really helpful concept there of how you describe this idea that as we embrace our limitations, that's the precursor to embracing rest. And as we embrace rest, that's how we embrace God, how we get them both. That's a really helpful concept in our just our cultural moment. So thank you for joining us today for our first episode of 10 Minutes That Make a Difference. We didn't quite make it in 10 today, but hopefully next time we will. With that said, we're going to sign off, and please leave us with any comments, suggestions, or your thoughts, or contact us at villagechurchchicago.org. Thanks.
Yeah. And join us next week as we talk about binge entertainment.